Howdy, howdy, Sue Devil here, and welcome to this Dwarf review of the Vampire Coast patch notes. They are very long and quite comprehensive, which is fantastic because it's been a while since we've got some data. I will try and go through them reasonably, talk about a few things that we've already garnered from some of the observations we've had. First of all, obviously, the new faction, the Vampire Coast, looks fantastic, and I'm definitely, the second they're out, we're going to start doing testing. The new Vampire Counts mechanic, the Bloodlines, should be interesting. I don't know how that's going to go in campaign, but their new lords look interesting. Heinrich Kemmler, he has a new start, which is right by Karek Ziflin, so that that part of the world might be a little bit more interesting. And he has a few different mechanics, and I guess he's got a mount and everything. And the free LC is Lokir Felhart, a dark elf who specializes in the sea and will get more black arcs and this sort of thing. The whole ocean should be vastly more interesting, and I've already seen some of the puzzles they have, and hopefully it'll say a little bit in this set of patch notes, but the puzzles look interesting, and just in general it'll be more exciting to sail the high seas, and of course you can now fight instead of auto-resolving, which is fantastic. So we're going to go through the campaign changes first, and I'll read through each line. We're going to go one by one and go as fast as we can. So Heinrich Kemmler start position update. So Heinrich Kemmler has been moved to Blackstone Post in the Mortal Empire with the new faction, the Barrow Legion, removing him from the Vampire Counts faction. And if you haven't, I would go to Loremaster of Sotek's channel. He actually did a really good lore video on Heinrich Kemmler, and he's like a really old character, like a very very interesting. He's been around in the Warhammer world for a very long time. So made Kemmler's army immune to non-vampire territory attrition, which will be very important up in those parts. Made Blackstone Post capital of Northern Grey Mountains province in the Mortal Empires. Added a base level of vampiric corruption in the Northern Grey Mountains, the Stone and the Forest of Arden provinces. Alright, so the campaign map changes. Added the Heart of the Jungle province and Bowman of Orion AI faction to the Mortal Empires campaign. Interesting. Added Land of the Dervishes province and Sudenburg AI faction to the Mortal Empires campaign. Adjusted other provinces and settlements to accommodate for these changes. They added the Chupayodal settlement to the Headhunters Jungle province in the Mortal Empires campaign, owned by Lokir Felhart, and added the Galleon's Graveyard province to both Eye of the Vortex and Mortal Empires, and that is where Count Noctilus will start. So the faction select and ordering changes. So reordered the factions in the campaign faction select screen. Base game factions shown first, followed by newest DLC in order, or Warhammer 1, then Warhammer 2, then Warhammer 1 factions. They reordered the factions in the custom battle faction select drop-down menu to match with the campaign's new ordering. Okay. And they reordered the factions end turn ordering to match with the faction selection screen when starting a new campaign. Playable factions go first, followed by minor factions, followed by other unique faction types. This is... Reordering the factions end turn order is not a small thing, and that should change. That will change a few things as far as how the campaigns actually flows. Should be interesting to see how that goes. So, legendary lord and faction bonus changes. So there's actually a lot of legendary lord changes in terms of the campaign, as well as some changes in multiplayer. So the High Elves Tyrion, for his faction, he has plus 30 diplomacy with High Elves factions, minus 100% build time to the Shrine of Cain building, and plus 3 Lord Recruit rank for Lothar and Seaguard. Dark Elves Marathi, minus 50% upkeep to heroes and hero action costs, change from minus 50% hero action costs, minus 25% construction costs for sorcery buildings. Skaven, Tretch Craventail, I think is his name, Lord, plus 13 melee attack during ambushes, move from faction to Lord effects. Plus 13 melee attack after retreating, moved from faction to Lord effects. Skarsnik, plus 14 charge bonus for Night Goblin Squig Hoppers. Vampire Counts, they got quite a few. Heinrich Kemmler, Suitable climate is now mountains, plus 30 diplomacy with beastmen and warriors of chaos. Interesting. That's probably because he has Krell. Maybe. Minus 25% to raise dead cost removed. Minus 50% upkeep for necromancers. Alright, Helman Gorst. Faction plus 30% research, search up from 10% and move to correct faction effect position now. Plus 3 corp cart recruits rank and plus 12 corpse cart charge bonus. Lord, his poison attacks. He has poison attacks. Moved to correct Lord effect position now. Isabella von Karstein, her faction effect is plus 1 to Blood Kiss on campaign start. And her Lord effect is Undying Love, plus 15 melee attack and melee defense when Vlad and Isabella reinforce each other. Cool effect. Manfred von Karstein, plus 10% movement range, up from 5%. That's actually going to make, that's not great for the Dao because he'll be able to move that much faster through our mountains. Plus 2 recruit rank to Graveguard and Black Knights, up from plus 1. Minus 15% upkeep to Graveguard. And plus 1 Blood Kiss on the campaign. Lord, plus 30 WOM reserves. I'm not sure what that means. Plus 10% leadership versus men. Vlad von Karstein, his faction bonus is plus 10% movement range. That is also bad because they're so close to the Dao. That'll just give them that much more of an ability to get into our lands. Plus 1 Blood Kiss, plus 30 diplomacy with Arkham the Black. Okay, interesting. And all vampire accounts in the Vampire Coast factions. And he has this Undying Love for Isabella. Norska, Throg, plus 15% physical resistance for trolls, up from 10%. Minus 20% upkeep for trolls. That'll make them a little bit tougher. Wolfric, minus 15% upkeep for marauders from minus 10. And plus 30% reinforcement range. Bretonia, Albrecht, minus 1 recruitment time for cavalry, plus 25% income from trade. Oh, up from 5%. Albrecht, yeah, okay. That should actually really help Bretonia, just in the faction. Plus 10 melee defense, MD Knights of the Realm. Melee defense from Knights of the Realm? Oh, whatever. Luan Kur, faction plus 50% aura size, all characters when attacking. The Lord plus 8 melee attack versus enemies of the Lady, plus 12 leadership versus enemies of the Lady. Empire, Balthasar Gelt faction. Effect, minus 50% upkeep reduction for battle wizards. That's up from 25%. Plus 2 wizard agent cap. That's up plus 1. His Lord effects, minus 20 winds of magic cost. 20%. Plus 10% artillery missile damage. Ah, cool. Whiter grill, no less chill. Awesome. Whiter grill, no less chill. Karl Franz, plus 10% movement range, up from plus 5. Minus 15% Reichsguard and Greatswords upkeep. Well, that's actually up from 10%. That will make them a little more powerful. Plus 30% diplomacy with Empire faction. Up from plus 10. Move to correct faction effect position now. That'll actually be really good for Empire. In order for them to stay at peace and to eventually confederate. Plus 8 leadership, up from plus 2 for the Lord effect. Volkmar, minus 30% upkeep for flagellants, minus 20% ancillary drop trance, up from 10%. Lord rates, Lord effects, plus 30% casualty replenishment for the flagellants, and plus 12% physical resistance for flagellants, and plus 14 melee defense for flagellants. Greenskins, Grimgor, this is important for us, for the Dao. Plus 10% movement range, up from 5%. Boo. He's going to be able to get right up into the Silver Road very easily. Minus 15% upkeep for Black Orcs, up from minus 10. His Lord effects, plus 12% leadership for Black Orcs, up from plus 6. Plus 10 armor for Black Orcs, up from plus 5. Plus 30% post-battle loot. Yuck. Alright, Azag, plus 25% from sacking. Plus 25% research rate, minus 1 construction time for settlements. Oh, that's going to make him grow his settlements pretty fast. Minus 25% construction costs. And plus 75% aura size, up from 15%. That's huge. Wurzag, minus 50% recruit for Savage Orcs. That's very small. So Dwarfs, here we go. Thorgrim, minus 25% military recruitment building cost, that's up from minus 10. Plus 3 recruit rank for Hammerers, that's up from plus 1. Plus 30 diplomacy with Dwarves. new. That is excellent right there. That is how it should be. Good job, CA. That is a very nice Lord effect for Thorgrim, plus 30 to diplomacy with dwarfs. That should actually help us if we want to do another This is Total Dwarf Hammer campaign. Minus 15% upkeep for hammers and longbeards, up from minus 10%, and plus 75% aura size, up from 15%. That's fantastic. Ungrim. Minus 50% Slayer recruitment cost, up from minus 25%, not a big deal. Minus 75% construction cost to Slayer and landmark buildings. Hoo-lay! That is fantastic. We'll be able to build Slayer buildings everywhere. And that'll help with, in that campaign, specifically with things like corruption. Lord effects, plus 10 melee attack for Slayers, up from plus 6. Wow. Plus 30% casualty replenishment for Slayers. Holy crap. Like, if you stack his casualty replenishment already, the casualty replenishment for Slayers is unbelievable. It is going to be ridiculous. He will be able to attack every turn. And minus 25% upkeep for Slayers. Move from faction effects to Lord effects. Okay. Belegar, plus 10 leadership versus Skaven and Greenskins. Good. And plus 30% tunnel evasion chance. Removed. What? Boo. Not that it was a big deal, but whatever. Grombrindle, plus 60% tunnel evasion chance, up from 40%. Plus 20% weapon strength for all units versus elves. Awesome. That's because, of course, Grombrindle was very, very much betrayed by Malekith. So he has a significant grudge against elves. For his Lord effects, plus 10 army leadership. Awesome. And plus 50% reinforcement range, up from 30%. Chaos, Archaon. Plus 10 Chaos Warrior leadership, up from plus 5. That'll make him a lot tougher. Minus 30% recruitment cost for Chaos Warriors, not a big deal. Minus 30 diplomacy with all factions, up from minus 20. Oh, okay. Plus 50% raise income, up from 25, and plus 5% ward save for all units. Change from Chaos Knights on only. Holy, that's going to make his army 5%, make his whole army 5% tougher. That'll be interesting. For Kolek Suneater, faction effects, plus 4 Chaos Corruption, minus 60 recruitment cost for Dragon Ogres, minus 60%, minus 30 upkeep for Dragon Ogres, change from minus 30% recruit cost. That's a really big deal. That's a huge buff. 30% on the upkeep instead of the recruitment, and plus 8% speed. Elven units removed. Okay. Sigvald. Plus 15 armor for lords and embedded heroes, up from 10. Plus 15 leadership versus men, up from 5. Well, that's pretty good. His lord effects, plus 3 horde growth, up from plus 1. Minus 60% marauder upkeep. That's new, interesting. And plus 3 marauder recruit rank. Okay. Wood elves, Durthu. Plus 10 charge bonus for dryads, treekin, and treemen, which is new. And minus 30% upkeep for those same units. That's fantastic. Orion, that hopefully the Durthu takes advantage and we see lots of treekin, treemen, and dryads. Orion, minus 15% upkeep for all cavalry. Ah, that was changed from Wildwood Riders, okay. And plus 8% charge bonus for Wild Riders and plus 20% weapon strength for Wild Riders, okay. Beastman, Khazrak, the One Eye. His faction effects, plus 40% raid bonus, up from 10, plus 10 leadership versus men, up from 5, minus 30% upkeep for Bestigors. That could make a big difference. Plus 3 recruit rank for Bestigors and minus 50% recruit cost for Bestigors. Wow. So we could see Khazrak with a lot of Bestigors. That would be interesting. That would make his army very powerful. Malagor, faction effects, plus 2 Bray Shaman cap, up from plus 1, plus 30 diplomacy with Beastmen. Interesting, up from plus 20, and plus 2 horde growth. So Malagor might be pretty decent in campaign. His lord effects, plus 3 Bray Shaman recruit rank, minus 8% enemy replenishment. Oh, that's interesting, and minus 8 enemy leadership. Wow, that's a pretty big deal for Malagor. Morgor, the Shadowgave. His faction effects, plus 30% upkeep for Minotaurs, down from plus 40. Okay. Minus 30% Chaos Spawn upkeep, down from minus 40. Plus 3 Chaos Corruption spread. And his Lord effects, plus 12% Chaos Territory attrition, plus 8 Spawn melee defense, and plus 20 missile resistance. Okay. So, vampire count changes. This should be interesting. Like, I think it looks like they did a pretty good job with the vampire counts. I don't know. Obviously haven't played them, but I've seen a few campaigns, and by the sounds of it, they look like they've done a good job. We'll see what the notes say. So Vampire Count Heroes. They moved the White King to level 2 Binding Circle building from level 3. Ooh, that's going to be tough for the Dawi because they're going to get those characters earlier. Added +2 White King Hero recruit rank to a level 3 Binding Circle building chain. Added the ability to recruit Necromancer heroes to level 2 Boneyard building chain. Added +1 Necromancer hero rank to level 3 Boneyard building chain. And +2 hero rank to level 4 Necromancy building chain. That's going to make them better in campaign. Vampire Count Mounts. Reduced all Nightmare and Barded Nightmare mounts to be unlocked at level 5. Oof. That'll make them tougher earlier. Reduced all Hellsteed mounts to be unlocked at 10. Reduce all Zombie Dragons to be unlocked at level 20. So that's kind of a big deal, is where they get the Zombie Dragons, I would say. Level 20. Okay. Reduce all Corpse Cart mounts to be unlocked at 10. And Balefire 13, Lodestone at 16. Heinrich Kemmler can now unlock a Barded Nightmare. Vampire Count Techs. They added 3 new techs: Rotten Flesh, the Ravenous Dead, which includes the new ability, the Ravenous Dead, and Unnatural Strength. Added effects to all 4 initial branching techs: the Book of Archeon, Liber Necronomica, Dinero's Blasphemous Bestiary, and the Lalamian Book of Blood. Rework to reduce research time and reorder numerous texts related to zombie skeletons within the Book of Archeon tech branch, and increased and enshrined Ancient Lord's attrition bonus to 30%. Interesting. Okay, so these are general campaign changes and fixes. So Blessed Spawnings for Ligerman now trigger as intended. So maybe they weren't triggering before, I'm not sure. Loyalty dilemmas for Dark Elves and Skaven now trigger. In some cases, they may now trigger too often. We are currently balancing their frequency. Okay, so we're trying to play with that idea. Interesting. Fix several rare end turn crashes. As normal, fixed rare instance where the player could end turn before the campaign flyover had finished, resulting in a crash. The Tier 3 and Tier 4 Dark Elf entertainment buildings can now be constructed by those who don't own the Queen and the Crone. Fortress games, Skaven Blight, Hell Pit, and occupied elven colonies can now be upgraded by those who do not own Tomb Kings. Sisters of Slaughter are now recruited from high Tier 3 halls of Ravaging. Skeleton Warriors and Skeleton Spearmen are now available to recruit from the Infantry Level 1 building, Open Graves. Lords will now correctly be removed from the army when wounded by attrition. Okay. Fixed various instances of lines in diplomacy being delivered without consideration for the character's gender. Okay. Fixed a rare incidents where ambushes could be discovered when armies were not near the ambush. Thorgrim's Grudge Against Undead skill now also applies to Tomb Kings. Awesome. Not that I really use it, but it could. The overcast version of Command of the Unliving has been added to the campaign. Fixed all Engage Force Army invading mission conditions, so they will now trigger. Fixed Hellerbrand's early game mission to upgrade Harganeth to a point at the correct region. Fixed Alariel's early game mission to upgrade Gaean Vale with the correct building requirements. Okay. Boris Todbringer now has access to Imperial Pegasus and Imperial Griffin mounts in campaign. And Boris Todbringer now has Midland, Runefang, and White Cloak of Ulrich as starting campaign magic items. Moved Clan Eshin faction leader to Axolotl from Marks of the Old One settlement in Mortal Empire's campaign. Okay. Clan Eshin now has control of Axolotl settlement from the start of the Mortal Empire's campaign. Maybe that'll help them over there, like Clan Eshin was getting beat up over on that side of the world, I think. Skagi's landmark building can once again be constructed. Hooray! High Elf Wood Resource buildings now also affect Shadow Warriors and Sisters of Avalord. Good. I love it when building effects are added. They're just really interesting things. Even though I'll never play it, I still think it's good. Dark Elf Pasture Resource buildings now affect Doomfire Warlocks, and Dark Elf Medicine Resource buildings now also affect Sisters of Slaughter. Same idea. Bretonnia can now construct their own variant of the Arcasladium of Myrmidia, I guess. I don't know what that means. The Arcus Latium of Meridian now gives more corruption, reduction, and public order. The Corone Tournament Grounds income is no longer affected by farm buildings. The Tower of Hoeth correctly applies its bonus to Swordmasters and Battle Wizards. The Dark Elf Daylight Denied technology now affects the income to correct buildings. The Dark Elf Harness Fury tech now also affects the Charybdis units. Oh, good. Okay. Like, I just like these techs being more and more broadened out. This is a bit of an aside, but it really does tell us that CA is continually paying attention to this game, and every time I see a little detail like that affected, it makes me happy. Various High Elf techs now also affect Sister of Avalorn and Shadow Warriors, which is good. The Vampire Decipher, Nehakara manuscripts, and incantations of Nagash now properly increase the income of associated buildings. The Vampiric Revivification and Delusions of Grandeur no longer incorrectly affect Blood Knights. Aldorf now has proper garrison when occupied by dwarfs and greenskins. Oh, it didn't have one before? Interesting. The Pyramid of Nagash now has a proper garrison when occupied by Skaven, Lizardmen, and Dark Elves. Increase the priority of High Elf, Dragon Princes, Bolt Throwers, and Chariots in garrisons. I guess they didn't have enough of those units in garrisons. Why would you want Chariots in garrisons? I don't know. Fixed Wolfric's innate reinforcement range bonus being applied twice. Oh, wow. Fixed some Norska events using Chaos event pictures instead of Norska specific ones. Fixed the number of effects that were not applying to the correct unit rank restrictions. Fixed army upkeep penalty not shown for Norska. Fixed Dark Elf Sorceress, a beast hero using Lord Magic skills. Okay. Fixed Dark Elf Supreme Sorceress of Death, Lord using hero magic skills. Fixed the Tomb King's Tahoth right, not applying unit recruitment rank bonus in local recruitment. Okay. A lot of fixes here. Fixed Telariel's Spirit Defender, applying melee defense instead of melee attack to Sisters of Avalorn. Fixed Warriors of Chaos quest, not triggering if the Advisor was not available. Fixed the Dark Elf Assassin Shroud of Darkness skill, not reducing vigor loss correctly. Okay. Fixed the Handmaiden's Restraint trait, not applying effects properly. Fixed Avalorn, Treemen, Dryads, Treekin, and Shadow Walkers recruitment issues. Fixed Strigoi Terrorgeist mount transferring issue. Fixed Missing Immortality skill on Norska Marauder Chieftain. Fixed Missing Attrition immunity for some Norska units. They changed the sacking bonus to raising bonus in the Eye Opens Wider dilemma for Warriors of Chaos. They changed Heinrich Kemmler's Chaos Tombblade effects, removing the Skeleton Warrior's upkeep reduction and replacing it with Chaos Attrition immunity. Okay, and fixed Norska Ritual armies being able to occupy settlements. Fixed a rare soft locks where Ariel's Star of Avalorn quest would not start if she had been confederated. Holy, that a lot of fixes. This is fantastic. Brayherds and Waz no longer feature lords and heroes as regular units. Fix a rare case where the player could not declare war on Crooked Moon Mutinous Gitz faction if they had re-emerged. Oh, okay. Fixed Kolak's unique skill and quest item not applying replenishment bonus correctly. They fixed a Tree Spirit building chain not appearing in Craig Halls of Findle. They fixed a Forest Spirit building chain not appearing in Widrioth. Fixed a Slayer Shrine Tier 5 having lower untainted effect than a Tier 4 building. Ah, I never noticed that. Fixed inconsistent population requirements for Wood Elf settlements, Savage Orc minor settlements, and Savage Orc and Norscan occupied settlements, Black Crag, Heracade Peaks, and Karaza Karak. Okay. Fixed Norska text granting immortality to all characters, including garrison commanders, rather than distinguishing between lords and heroes. Interesting. Fixed Wurzag's Squiggly Beast Stage 2 mission not accepting other Night Goblin variants. Fixed the number of minor settlements having more than 4 building slots. Fixed Wood Elf Tech Liliath and the Maiden not applying magic resistance to all units. Wow, there's tons of stuff here. Reinstated upgraded version of Command of the Living to Stragor Ghoul Kings. Unit stats now show context bonuses. Example, improved melee attack when fighting against Bretonnia. When appropriate on the pre-battle screening campaign. Oh, interesting. Okay, so, some of those things you get in your yellow tree, where they don't show up until you're on the battlefield. Now they will show up in the battle screen, which is fantastic. The Rite of Sotek can now be unlocked by winning defensive ambush battles. Fixed inconsistencies in Bretonnian Warhost mount naming. Alright. Fixed Grombrindle's Cloak of Valaya quest battle pre-battle screen not showing any enemy units. Fixed okay, so I didn't know. I don't remember seeing that one, but fixed Marathi's quest chain getting stuck on an incompatible rite if she had been confederated in Crone Hellebrand's faction. Frosty Beginnings mission should no longer trigger for Crone Hellebrand if she is at war with the faction. Fixed Norska not being able to occupy settlements that were added in recent patches. Okay. Phrase pirate booty now freely interchangeable with pirate duty. Very important. Fixed an issue where loading an autosave after confederating as Norska on legendary difficulty would not save the confederation. Oh, that would be annoying. Fixed an instance in the event feed where the Brayherds could be referred to as Was. Okay. Well, they're basically the same effect. So I understand that. It's probably a copy and paste left over from a long time ago. Dark Elves now receive event messages when Blackguard building is constructed or demolished. Morgar's Staff of Ruinous Corruption quest will now correctly proceed when the quest is aborted as a result of Greenstead's faction being destroyed. As Warriors of Chaos, awakening a tribe in a region that was under rebellion no longer produces amalgamations of unimaginable horror. Alright. Adjusted Campaigner trait so that it will no longer trigger when close to the faction capital. Oh, I see. Yeah, Campaigner trait, I think you need to be like a long ways away from your capital for it to trigger. Vlad's Blood Drinker quest stage 2 has been changed to defeat an Empire army. Okay. Dwarf campaigns will no longer start with minus 36 public order in their home province. Dwarf campaigns will no longer start with minus 36 public order in their home province. I've never seen that. Or maybe I did. Maybe I missed it. Maybe it was in that. I wonder if it was in Ungrim Ironfist campaign. Change the skill Renowned and Feared to be gender neutral so that it makes sense in both male and female characters' skill trees. Okay. Clicking the resources on the mortuary cult zoom to the nearest one should now work correctly for all resources. Norscan garrison leaders can no longer be wounded and subsequently return from duty. The second and third tier slave building chain for Norscan now correctly give bonuses to sacking. The Norscan tech longer hulls will now give correctly 10% bonus to sacking, and players can no longer declare war on their own blood voyage. Alright. Holy. This is awesome. Okay. Where we go? So Shadow Walkers and Shadow Warriors no longer gain the plus 10% missile resistance of favorable winds prior to rank 7. Skaven factions are no longer invisible to the player after being vassalized. Okay. Elithanar will no longer trigger an advisor message about Dark Elves when none are present. The advisor now correctly shows for Vlad and Isabella. Alright. I wonder if they fix that for the Dowie. Because if you start a Dowie campaign as, say, Grombrindle, and you end up recruiting Thorgrim, Thorgrim will now show up as your faction leader. The advisor will no longer incorrectly trigger when playing as Skaven, informing the player of technologies being available when there are none. The faction summary for Nagaron will now show the correct faction symbol when referencing Exiles of Nehek. Fixed an issue with Kislev names not displaying properly. Okay. Added a tooltip to the toggle notification options on Lords and Heroes to clarify the functionality better. The tooltip for Amber will no longer advise the player to demolish buildings to regain Amber when the only buildings that require Amber cannot be demolished. Alright, just a simple issue there. Tooltips will no longer stay stuck on screen when turning a locked overlay and exiting the overlay screen. The Skaven mission Evil Neesqueevil will now ask the player to recruit a Doom Wheel rather than a Chariot. Well, that's a good idea because the Skaven don't have chariots. Femur Balefiend skill power drain has been renamed Magical Reserves to better reflect its functionality. Fix the typo in Elithanar's Spectre skill. Fix the typo in Ark and the Black's flyover. Fix the typo in Tyrion's Dragon Armor. Fixed typo. Fixed edge cases in AI versus AI auto-resolver, which favored one side too much. I wonder if that's going to help Skaven. Because this may seem small, but this is... What this is this is campaign balance stuff, right? And we know in the campaign, typically Skaven auto-resolve very, very poorly. So what you see is Skaven get the crap beat out of them by the other AI, and then there's not a whole lot of Skaven left to fight. And, you know, that could be a problem. Or it might be, like I know the Dowie are pretty good at auto-resolve. Maybe they're bringing that down a notch. I don't know. Hard to say. I don't know how other factions auto-resolve all that. I know those are two that people have talked about, the Dowie auto-resolving well, and the Skaven auto-resolving poorly. Fix the typo on the Pearl of Infinite Darkness. AI is now far less likely to construct two of the same building in the same province. Well, happy day. You know, small but significant, this. You know, two of the same building in the same province. What would be nice if they could get the AI to properly deconstruct buildings and reconstruct and to work on their buildings in terms of their entire faction, because that is part of the problem of the AI, because you start to badly outperform the AI the bigger your factions become, because you build recruitment centers where you can recruit this type of infantry or that type of infantry, and the AI just can't handle that. Okay, port settlements will now show a port icon on the city info bar. That's an interesting idea. It'll probably make it easier to know which where you can have the Vampire Coast, Vampire Cove, or whatever it is. Vampiric corruption will no longer overlap in the tooltip in certain percentages. All right, Kilhar the Tormentor will no longer stand in T-pose on the campaign map. Alright. Fix the typo in the Forbidden Library flavor text. Norskin long-term victory message should be more relevant to the faction now. Fix typos in the Lucky Sulkin's flavor text. Confederating as Norska by defeating a faction lord will no longer result in the incorrect even message from being displayed. Fix the typo in the Gathering of the Might skill tooltip. Fix an anomaly with the auto-resolve bar display resetting in strength when adding more units. You know what? I did see this one, and the anomaly was the auto-resolve bar stayed the same even though I did add more units. So, interesting. Added income to Bretonnian settlements. Okay, that should help. Bretonnia gets a little bit beat up right now in campaign, so that should help them, along with some of those changes to their lords. The button to disband the lord in the character detail panel is now grayed out for legendary lords. What? Alright. Well, not that I want to disband them, but I might want to change the lord at some point. So fix an issue where Malagor's entire army could be lost if it was wounded. Okay. And Gor Grazan will no longer load the Shrine of Cain battle from campaign. Alright. So general battle changes and fixes. Okay, so these are more general in campaign. So I would imagine. Or maybe they're in multiplayer too. We'll see. Alright, added a new host spectator toggle to multiplayer battles. Okay, well, that solves that mystery right there. It's multiplayer and campaign. In order to improve tournament battle viewing and broadcast. I've already seen this with Turn, and it's fantastic. A few little other tweaks, and that could be absolutely outrageous. It could be amazing. In this mode, the host can set up the battle but not join as a contestant. When the match begins, the host can freely spectate when the battle between the players commences. This mode is currently in beta. Host has visibility over armies of all players. The host and all players must ready up in order for the battle to commence. Currently, AI armies cannot be assigned to player slots. Currently, additional spectators cannot be added to the battle. So fix some rare battle crashes, added the new Barrow Legion faction to the custom battles, okay. Reinforcements should now enter the battlefield from the expected direction. Oh my goodness! That's fantastic. Man, that's been a long time coming. Boy, oh boy, did I get into some weird battles in my first Mortal Empire campaigns with Grombrindle, where we ended up having some really strange reinforcement, where the reinforcements showed up, and it can be extremely irritating when it happens. So thank you, CA. That's a big change right there with reinforcements coming to the battlefield from their expected directions. Okay. That makes it just so you can set your armies up to get your reinforcement from where you want, and you can take advantage of that if you want to split armies up and you're attacking. All right, the timer and replayers will now count up rather than down. Okay, that will should make replays a little bit more entertaining, to be honest, because usually you can see when the battle's almost over by the timer coming down to 0. So fixed an issue where the game could freeze and crash when hovering over the multi-shot ammunition and Reaper bolt throwers. Okay, updated War Hydra and Charybdis unit category descriptions. Reduced the likelihood of artillery marching towards Greenskin if High Elf towers when given an attack order against these towers. So I wonder if they fix that for other things. That's because artillery marching towards Greenskin and High Elf towers when given a... Oh! Maybe this was the... So there's a bug. And this happened in... particularly the Mortal Empires campaign I did with Grombrindle, but it also happened in my campaign with Ungram, where your artillery, you click on a tower to kill it, and your artillery just marches towards it and doesn't kill it. So they've fixed that. Greenskin and High Elf towers. Interesting. Those were the two towers. So, if you weren't fighting the Greenskins, you probably didn't think there was an issue there. Interesting. Okay, so that's really good. Thank you, CA. That was a really irritating bug. The AI will now use Realm of Souls, Ushapti, and Menace from below on non-ranged artillery units. Okay. If the Menace Blow is used inside of a settlement as the attacker, the towers will no longer fire inside of the settlement. Okay. Encourage attribute has been added to Goblin Great Shaman when mounted on a Giant Wolf, and added to the Night Goblin Shaman. That's a pretty big deal, actually, for the Greenskins, particularly in multiplayer, to have that Encourage aura. That means a lot to them as a low leadership faction. Norska units, Trolls, Frostworm, and Manticore now have Siege Attacker attribute. Okay. That will make Norska a lot more dangerous because they can siege on the first turn. Malekith now has a Siege Attacker attribute when on a Dragon Mount. The High Elf Dragon Mounts now correctly show the Siege Attacker icon. Chanted Decapods thrice into a mirror while turning around, and Almighty Sigmar look at the mess we're in. Who writes this stuff? Fixed an issue with Siege Attacker icon not appearing for High Elf Lords mounted on dragons in custom battles. Wolfric now correctly has 15% missile resistance when mounted on his Mammoth. The High Elf Noble will no longer incorrectly do damage on collision. Oh, was he doing damage on collision? Interesting. Because a lot of units have collision damage even if they don't hit. So I wonder if that was what he was doing, that damage while he was not on his mount. Added missing loading screen quotes for some units. Uthuan battle maps will no longer incorrectly be used when fighting in the Badlands area of the Vortex campaign map. Fireball can no longer be cast without it costing Winds of Magic and ignoring its cooldown. Interesting. I wonder what that was from. Well, it couldn't have been multiplayer. We would have heard about it. Fixed scale of Wood Elf's heroes. So their scale might have been off. Maybe they weren't big enough. Fixed an issue where Beastmen models would appear too large compared to the Razorgore chariot they were occupying. Zooming limits adjusted. Minimum camera height is lower, allowing for ground level cinematic angle, and max camera height is 17% higher, allowing for slightly wider overview. This is not enough, CA. If anyone ever sees this, is just not enough. It's better, but the base camera is just, it's not very good. This 70% probably needs to be more like 100%. And then you get it lower to the ground, and then you're probably good for the base camera. Lords on flying mounts should now respond correctly to movement orders after being interrupted or knocked back during duels. Fix an issue where invalid movement orders could be issued on several siege maps. Heinrich Kemmler now has Krell summon ability, and his quest ballad is played via the front end. Okay. Alithanar will now use a giant eagle in his Moonbow contest when started from the front end to match the campaign starting army. Oh, front end. That's if you're just going to go fight that battle in the loading screen rather as opposed to fighting that battle just in the regular campaign. So rage is no longer removed when disabling Foe Seeker or Fight or Die from Marauder, Chiefman, Lord, and Customer multiplayer battle. Alright. Bjark Black Raider will now display the correct model. Dark Elf Manticore's faceplate is now positioned correctly. Templehof of Luminarch now displays the correct model and VFX when destroyed. Fix a graphical stretching issue shown on Dark Elf Manticore's legs. It took a good eye to find that, I'm sure. Fix an issue where the Supreme Sorceress would clip through the seat on the Manticore mount. Fix an issue where Shopti heads could show as small triangles when zoomed out. Fix an issue where Necropolis Knights where the main body could clip through the head. Fix an issue where Lothran Seaguard's shield would kelp. Lothran Seaguard's shield's kelp would not display correctly. Blood should no longer appear as vertical lines on the Hydra and Charybdis decks. Blood will no longer disappear on ranged units' bows during their firing animations. And the Charybdis head should no longer be offset during the Charybdis matched animation. Holy, they got a lot of changes. This is quite a beefy patch. This makes me very happy to see all the work they're putting in. So fixed various issues with elf units when weapon switching, which included weapons flickering or disappearing and holding swords and bows at the same time. Dark Riders with repeater crossbows and Raven Heralds with repeater crossbows will no longer change their bow model during their fire animations. Okay. Pistoliers, Outriders and Outriders with a grenade launcher will no longer swap their sword between their hand and hip while idling. Mounted Yeomen will no longer change their bow model during their firing animations. Okay. Dark Riders with shields will no longer hold their shields correctly during charges. Will now hold their shields correctly during charges. The Handmaiden's Spear will no longer detach from her hand during some attack animations. They did actually change. You could see some of those skinks that were floating on their mounts were fixed during some of the matches I saw. So the Blessed Legion of Fox will no longer incorrectly hold spears and shields when the user is zoomed out at a great distance from the unit. Fixed an animation syncing issue during Hellstorm Rocket Battery's firing animation. Fixed an issue where the low-tier Empire and Bretonnian units would play the wrong animation during a moving attack. Fixed an issue where Morgur would occasionally use a whip when attacking. Okay. The Charybdis main head will no longer snap during any attacks. The Charybdis will no longer cross its jaw during sweeping attacks. Increased shadow map resolution on medium, high, and ultra settings. Okay. I wonder if that's shadows. Shadow map resolution. I don't know what that is exactly. Added collision to the same buildings that lacked it on Khemri Siege map. Troops will now hide correctly on the Khazid Hercules map. Fixed an area in Eagle Gate map where troops could not be deployed. Okay. Fixed multiple instances of floating walls and props in the Port Elistar Siege map. The walls are no longer slightly floating above the terrain for the ancient city of Kintek Siege map. Props will no longer flicker on the Crag Zorn Siege map. Are the people that see all this stuff? That's interesting, you know. Fixed an issue with lighting in the Karak Izor Siege map. Ruination of cities will no longer appear textureless. Does it appear textureless? It looks blue to me, but whatever. Fixed some smoke VFX that appeared to be in 2D. VFX will now properly displayed when the Sunmaker is destroyed. Norskin Warhounds are now using the correct unit card. Interesting. The Branch Wraith provided in the Army of the Sword of Day Stage 1 quest battle will no longer use the incorrect unit card. Upgraded spells with a minus 15% miscast chance will now display the miscast chance in the tooltip. Okay, that's good. Frost Breath now has the correct tooltip. Sound will now correctly play when clicking on the unit info arrows in custom battle. Wood Elf and High Elf archers will no longer swap bow models when firing artillery. When firing, period. Artillery will no longer be able to shoot beyond its intended range when forcing it to shoot at the ground. Oh, interesting. Frame rate drops should be less frequently during battle when units appear or abilities are used. Well, that's good. Lothar and Sea Guards with shields should now correctly display on their backs when they are in missile mode. Oh, I see. So their shields weren't appearing on their backs when they were firing their missiles. Wood Elf and High Elf Lord's swords will no longer disappear and reappear during their firing animations when mounted on horses. Ah, okay. Individual archers should no longer be killing an excessive number of enemies compared to the same units of the army. In the army, okay. Heroes will no longer die when flying over a wall that gets destroyed. That's hilarious. I wish I would have known that bug existed. I would have loved to try and make it work. Order and movement VO no longer play as a spectator in multiple battles. Order and movement VO no longer play during replays. Order and movement VO. Orders, maybe? Where you could see their actual orders? I don't know. Projectiles now correctly show VFX when projectile trails are set to be off. Okay, interesting. Excuse me. Still recovering from my cold here. Okay, audio changes. Oh, they got character and unit rebalancing is coming right up. So audio changes and fixes. Reworked group vocalization system to add a new assets for most humanoid units. Blood Knights thirst for more blood. Awesome. Bretonian Knights and Peasants are now overly honorable. Awesome. Dark Elves, Male, Female, and Witch Elves are now extra malevolent. Dwarfs now hold even more grudges. Fantastic. Empire State troops are now more disciplined. Goblins are now extra stabby. Awesome. High Elves, Male and Female, have increased arrogance. I don't know how that's possible, but okay. Orcs now harder than ever. Warriors of Chaos and Norskin, Chosen Marauders and Chaos Warriors worship the Dark Guards more intensely. Alright. Wood Elves, Male and Female, are now wilder. Oh. Ooh, they're wild. Tweaked and improved individual vocalizations. So new assets for Chaos. Oh, wait a minute, kids. New assets for Chaos, Dwarves, and Ghost Horses? What? We have new assets for Dwarves? Awesome. I can't wait. Improved distinction between roars and screams for animations, battle and campaign, and re-tagged animations to use the suitable events. Tweaked probabilities of individual vocalizations triggering. Awesome. Legendary Lords have all received a new cinematic kit 2 impact sounds for their melee attacks, appropriate to their weapon of attack or choice. Awesome. Improved the audio mix when music is enabled. Rebalance the mix for multiple larger creatures. Improve the audio feedback on the magic and ability targeting. Reduce spamming of targeting UI sound when moving between targets. Reduced cannonball impact spam. Alright. Blasting charge limiting updated. Okay. Reworked Empire and Norska battle environment ambiance. Set Alariel, Elithanar, and Crone Hellebrand's campaign lore details panel VO to 2D. Alright. Front end ambiance is now crossfade when switching between backgrounds. Okay. Front end Lord portrait videos now play once at full volume and then reduce volume for subsequent loops. Ah, that's a good idea because that can be quite annoying when you're just sitting there looking at things and it's like they're screaming and stuff. Malekith has had a bit of a lie down. Is feeling much better now, thank you, and will no longer scream incessantly in a raiding stance. So I hope they fix this with some other dark elves, because there was during the Mortal Empires campaign with Grombrindle, when we were overtaking those dark elf territories, some of their characters that were on the campaign map would just yell. Like every 30 seconds they'd be like, "Oh!" So Hopefully they fix that. Sound will now correctly play when clicking on the unit info arrows in custom battle. Awesome. And now we get to character and unit balancing. Interesting. Okay. So we have Beastman. Okay. So Malagor plus 400 mass, plus 1 run speed, plus 1 multiplayer cost, plus 10 melee attack, plus 10 melee defense, plus 10 AP melee damage, plus 15 base melee damage. Holy crap. That is a big buff, but it's a big debuff with the increased cost. So Malagor, what would they be trying to do there? Maybe with increasing the multiplayer cost and increasing all the stats, they're trying to make Malagor more of a choice differential for what he does. Okay. Gorbol, plus 200 mass, plus 5% hit reaction ignore chance, plus 5% knock interrupt ignore chance. No longer has terrain penalties in shallow water. I think that's a big deal. Gorbol looked pretty good in the tournament that I saw it in, so it might be more of a unit to watch for in multiplayer. So Kazrak the One-Eye, Razorgore Chariot plus 10 armor. Okay, not much change. So they're basing things on Kazrak. Morgurf plus 50 mass. Morgurf the Shadowgave is the pick for the Beastman. So plus 50 mass will just make him better. Okay, the Feral Manticore minus 100 cost. Alright, the Goreherd with dual weapons minus 50 multiplayer cost. They needed that. Actually, all their infantry is all gorked up. I mean, they're in pretty bad shape, I think, for their infantry. All up until the Bestigor. Bestigors are solid. The rest of their infantry are really poor. This is interesting. Minotaurs minus 50 cost. Minotaurs with shields minus 100 cost, and Minotaurs with great weapons minus 100 cost, which is good. I'd love to see more Minotaurs and Beastmen builds, and I'd like to beat them up. Razorgore Herd minus 50 cost. Okay. That'll make more Razorgores. Like as a Dowie, you're probably going to see more Razorgores. Giants plus 35 armor piercing melee damage and plus 15 base melee damage plus 1 splash attack. So they made Giants a lot better. You still won't see them against the Dowie, just because the Dowie have so many tools against Giants, I think. So the Dwarfs. So Belagar minus 50 multiplayer cost. We did see that. It looks like we saw almost all of these. We did see that beforehand when we were looking at the unit cards. Runelord plus 50 multiplayer cost. We saw that. Grombrindle minus 100 multiplayer cost, and Thorgrim minus 50. Okay, so the base Lord, there's no changes, and there looks like there's no changes for Ungrim. We'll go and see inside the game when it releases if there are changes. They said they were changing every Lord. So they may have changed Ungrim's campaign effects, which they have, but I don't know if they changed the base Dwarf Lord in any way, shape, or form. We're going to go inside there and take a look. Now, they said they've given the Thane plus 4 melee defense, which is good, make the Thane a little more tanky. Hopefully they have gotten rid of the Horn of Vengeance and changed it to something useful. Bugman's Rangers, like we said before, we did see that. Minus 2 health per entity. Pretty reasonable. Bugman Rangers are awesome. Hammers plus 2 health per entity. That's awesome. Hammers are already really solid. This will just make them a lot better. Plus 2 health is a lot. And the same goes for the Peak Gate Guard, plus 2 health per entity. Now the Gyro Bomber, we did see this as well, plus 200 health. We didn't see the Clattergun ammo, plus 20 Clattergun ammo. Same with the Skyhammer, plus 200 health, plus 20 Clattergun ammo. Will this make them viable in multiplayer? I don't know. I don't think so. But, I mean, their bombs are really powerful if you can get them in the right situation. That's the thing. Like, all gyrocopters are very situational. In the right situation, they're amazing. But in the wrong situation, they're horrible. Now, Quarrelers with great weapons, as we did see, plus 2 melee defense. Now, this is interesting. This is actually really good because Quarrelers with great weapons, in some of our testing, they do have a use. And we look at some of that testing we did on Dowie backline anti-cav infantry. Quarrelers with great weapons are really solid against cavalry. And with that plus 2 melee defense, I mean, really solid is maybe they are actually good in that case as compared to regular Quarrelers or regular Rangers and stuff like that. And that plus 2 melee defense is actually a pretty big deal. Like, anytime you see melee defense and melee attack altered, I think it's the biggest deal. Because that is how each individual unit is going to perform on the battlefield. So it's, especially when you have a unit like the Quarrelers, +2 melee defense is a lot. Is it the changes we wanted? Well, I don't know. We'll see if the Thane got any changes to their actual items. But we didn't see any Thanes in any of the tournaments so far, so I highly doubt they've gotten anything useful. And we don't really see any changes to any of the other units I'd like to see changed. So I don't know. This is, the Dowie are not in an awful spot anyways. This definitely makes Grombrindle a lot more playable. 100 gold is a lot, and Thorgrim -50 gold, that's actually a lot too. Now, are they, even with the Rune Lord going up by 50? I don't know. The Rune Lord is really, really good. Like, it's hard to see. None of the other lords are that bad. So it will be interesting. The Bugman's Rangers are awesome. They'll be a little less awesome with the -2 health. And that's a big deal because they are a health regenerating unit. So hitting them in the health is hitting them where it hurts. All right, so let's take a look at the greenskins. Skarsnik, +300 mass, okay. Grimgor, +600 mass, +5 armor, +7 melee defense. That's a pretty big buff, folks. +7 melee defense. That's a pretty big deal. One of the things I've noticed is the new lords in this Vampire Coast pack, they have some insane stats where you add up their melee defense and their melee attack. Some of them add up to 130. Like 70 melee attack, 60 melee defense. It's crazy. Like the very best Dwarf Lord adds up to 115, and that's Belegar. Belegar has like 60 melee attack and 55 melee defense. He adds up to 115, and some of these lords are now adding up to 130 stat points there. So, yeah. And it looks like when you see a lot of buffs, this is kind of one of the funny things about power creep. If you're not really familiar with the term, that says as a game gets older and things keep getting buffed, what happens is technically every time you buff units on the whole, you are actually debuffing good units that have always been there. So when you see a lot of these buffs, and this does include a lot of buffs for a lot of units, basically any units that aren't shown here are getting nerfed, right? Because the other units are running away from them. So, these are pretty big buffs for these 4 lords, and we see the Thane getting buffed, the Bugman's Rangers getting nerfed, the Hammer is buffed, the Sky Hammer is buffed, the Quarter is buffed. You'll see a lot of buffs or improvements, and that just means every unit that's not on this list is technically getting nerfed because their relative power is going down. So that's how you see power creep over time in terms of the units, and you can see this very blatantly where the Dwarf's very best lord for stats has 115 stats, and now the Vampire Coast best unit has 130 total, which is crazy. Or maybe it was the Vampire. Maybe it was a Vampire Lord. I can't remember, like one of the Vampire. Well, I'll have to go. I'll go see and compare it. I just remember seeing it on a stat card. Like they had 70 melee attack and 60 melee defense. And I'm like, God damn, that's crazy. That's absolutely insane for just some regular Lord. But anyways, so we'll get on to the greenskins. So Grimgor 600 mass, which is really good for him. So hopefully he won't get knocked around so much. And 7 melee defense is a big deal, because he is actually pretty easy to kill. And the Night Goblin Shaman added Encourage, and the Great Shaman added Encourage, which is great. The Goblin Archers -25%, -25 gold, and the Fanatics -25 gold. Well, you might see them a little more, I don't know. Squig Herd +10 health per entity. That's a pretty big deal, because squigs are generally easy to kill and they require a lot of micro. But if they can stick in there a little bit more, squig herds are dangerous to the Dowie because they're armor piercing and anti-infantry. Orc Boar Chariots +4 melee attack. Might see some of those. Savage Orc Boar Boy Big Guns, now truly bigger and harder, with +5 bonus versus large and -2 charge bonus. Yeah, that bonus versus large is a big deal, because that's +5 to their melee attack and +5 to their weapon strength against large units. And the Giant has +35 AP, +15 base melee, and +1 splash attack. So big buff to the Giants. We're going to take a look at Empire. And again, you see most of these are buffs, right? Most of these are improvements. So that means everything that's not on this list is getting worse. Alright, the Royal Altdorf Griffites. Plus 50 cost, plus 8 health per entity, plus -2 charge bonus. Yeah, I don't know if that health is going to match up with the cost differential. It may. Same with the Demigriffs with Halberds, plus 8 health, -2 charge bonus. Okay. And the Demigriff Knights with Lances. These are the ones we have to worry about as the Dowie. They have plus 2 melee defense, and they have plus 8 health, so they're going to be better in melee combat. That's not great. The Hellblaster Volley Gun, -50 multiplayer cost. Now, the Hellblaster Volley Gun is really good. It doesn't have a whole lot of range, like 250 or something like that, but it's sort of like an organ gun. So -50 multiplayer cost, that is good for the Empire, because it is a very good piece of artillery. The Hellstorm Rocket Battery, -100 multiplayer cost. I don't care. Hellstorms are awful. So, I mean, they have really great range. They have like 480 range, I think, but they don't do armor piercing, and they're very inaccurate. So, I mean, if that convinces more people to bring Hellstorm rocket batteries, that's fine with me as a dwarf. Just more Hellstorm rocket batteries to kill. The Captain, -50 multiplayer cost. Maybe we'll see more Empire Captains, because they have a lot of good, like the Empire have pretty good heroes, because they have the Witch Hunters, and they have the Warrior Priests, and they have they have all kinds of mages, and so the Captain has sort of gotten left behind. -50 multiplayer cost, so we might see a few. I doubt it, but you might. Crossbowmen, -25 cost. That's a pretty big deal. They're reasonably cheap as it is, and with the Vampire Coast, they'll be very good against the Vampire Coast. Yeah, I don't know how much that'll help the Empire, but I mean, it's a savings, it's a buff. Pistoliers, plus 8 charge bonus, plus 2 melee attack. What? Pistoliers are already good. Why do you want to give them these extra stats in melee? Oh, whatever. Witch Hunter, -10 ammo. Okay, that's good, because Witch Hunters will against the Dowie, Witch Hunters can easily get 80 kills. Easily. Because they have armor-piercing missile damage. This is where they really outshine the Master Engineer. Greatswords, plus 2 leadership. Okay. Greatswords are improving. And Greatswords are kind of look like they're really slotting into where they need to be. They have had some recent improvements. They were underperforming. Now their stats are really close to where they need to be. Plus 2 leadership will make them a little bit more reliable. So it looks like they're very close to where they need to be. Halberdiers, plus 2 leadership, same thing. Spearmen with no shields, plus 2 bonus versus large. Okay, so that'll help make them a little more reasonable. We noted the Empire has, like, Spearmen with shields are really, really highly ranked, and then come their swordsmen, and then come their Spearmen with no shields. But that plus 2 bonus versus large should help separate them a little. Steam tanks, which apparently are awful. I don't know. I don't really see them. Plus 3 bonus versus infantry, plus 35 armor piercing melee damage, and plus 5 base melee. So they're a little more crushing. I don't know how they'll do, but we'll see. Knights of the Blazing Sun, plus 1 armor piercing melee damage, -1 base melee. So that is a net buff for sure. And great cannons, improve the accuracy. Alright, so I think, are there any nerfs here at all? Yeah, -2 charge bonus for Royal Altdorf Griffites, and Demigriff Knights. Otherwise, this is all... Oh, and -10 ammo for the Witch Hunter. Otherwise, this is all pretty good news for the Empire. The Dark Elves, Malekith, plus 300 mass on foot. I mean, will you ever see him on foot? I don't know, but now he has more mass. Sorceresses, all of them, -50 multiplayer cost for the Cold One mounts. War Hydras, -150 cost. I think that's great. I'd like to see more big things. And War Hydras are pretty cool. The Chill of Sontar, -50 cost. Frost Breath no longer is flaming. The Charybdis, plus 5 bonus versus large. Interesting, okay. And Pharaoh Manticore, -100 cost. The Supreme Sorceress, this is the Lord. They're on foot and on a Dark Steed, plus 550 multiplayer cost. The Cold Ones, plus 50 multiplayer, and Dark Pegasus, plus 100 multiplayer. Okay, so the Supreme Sorceresses must have been very highly picked. Although, I hardly ever saw them. I always see Marathi or Malekith, but maybe they were being picked, I guess. Maybe they were a high-value, cheap pick. Doomfire Warlocks, -1 health, plus 100 melee or multiplayer cost. Yeah, that's a pretty big nerf right there. Slaanesh Harvesters, -1 health per entity, plus 100 cost. Another big nerf. Sisters of Slaughter, -1 melee attack, -1 melee defense. That's a big nerf. Cold One Knights, -12 charge bonus, plus 8 melee attack, and plus 2 melee. That's a big buff, right? That's a huge buff. Cold One Knights, -12 charge bonus. Your charge bonus only lasts for like 11 seconds. This is the melee attack and melee defense. Those are the stats we care about. And plus 8 melee attack and plus 2 melee defense. That's 10 stat points for Cold One Knights. You are going to see a lot of Cold One Knights. I think they can rampage. That's, but with those extra stats, who cares? An extra 10 stats, they're going to be crushing. So Dread Knights, -6 charge bonus, plus 4 melee attack, plus 2 melee defense. Again, huge buff that is. Knights of the Ebon Claw, same. -6 charge bonus, plus 4 melee attack, plus 2 melee defense. Massive buff. And Shades, all of them, plus 2 health per entity. That's a big buff. So, Dark Elves, which are probably, like, they're a tier 1 faction, might be the best one. They're very, very good all around. Looks like they got a few nerfs, but not enough to, and they got some buffs. Like these Cold One Knights, getting 10 extra stat points, that's going to be a big deal. That's a big deal. How about the High Elves? Okay. The Fireborn, -50 multiplayer cost, -5 physical resistance. Okay. Dragon Princes, -50 multiplayer cost, -5 physical resistance. Silver Helms, both variants, plus 4 charge bonus. Okay. A Handmaiden, -50 multiplayer cost, increased projectile speed, increased projectile penetration. Alright. The Sisters of Avalorn, plus 2 AP missile damage, -2 base missile damage. That is a big buff right there. You gotta think some missile units have 1 armor-piercing missile damage. Some of them have 4. So getting plus 2 armor-piercing in exchange for 2 base, that's a big buff. The Everqueen Court Guards, same thing. Plus 2 armor-piercing, -2 base missile damage. The Grey, -100 multiplayer cost. And Storm Riders, -50 multiplayer cost. Tyrion, plus 100 multiplayer cost. -2 melee attack, plus 90 AP melee damage, and -110 base melee. So that's a big buff. In stats, in actual weapon strength, getting that AP, but -2 melee attack and plus 100 melee multiplayer cost. Because if you think 110 base damage, if a unit has 100 armor, that's generally going to be 75% mitigation. So you're going to get 25 damage. So you're exchanging like 20, like say 30 damage, 30 stable damage for 90. Like you're basically, that's a pretty big improvement in overall damage, but you're going to hit less, -2 melee attack, and you do cost more. I mean, that would be scary against the Dowie. I don't want to fight Tyrion with a big AP melee attack. Alright. Alarielle, on her eagle, -8 melee attack. Okay, that's good. Elithanar, projectile slightly more accurate, increased projectile penetration. Okay, and the Tyrannoch Chariot and the Elithamar Chariot, they both added martial prowess. I guess they didn't have it before. -4 melee defense. So they'll be, if you can get them caught, you'll be able to kill them a little bit easier, right? So Bretonia, excuse me. So the Blessed Field Trebuchet, -50 multiplayer cost, and the Field Trebuchet, -50 multiplayer cost. You really don't see those that often, but they are their only artillery, so they should be valued at about at a place where they are reasonable for them to bring them. Albric, -100 multiplayer cost. That's a pretty big buff. The Fey Enchantress, direct damage aura, deals 20% less damage. Oh, that's a big nerf. Fey Enchantress is like the main lord for Britannia and multi-layer. The Lord, Foot, Warhorse, Pegasus, -50%, -50 multiplayer cost. Okay, that's their basic lord. Foot Squires, plus 20 multiplayer cost. That's a pretty big nerf. What's funny is we know Foot Squires are still pretty weak compared to some of the strong armor-piercing anti-infantry units, the great swords and Chaos Warriors are great weapons in this sort of thing, and objectively on their own they weren't that great, but I guess really in context of the entire Bretonnian faction they were underpriced. They were a little more valuable than they should have been. That's interesting to see, because Foot Squires are not an outstanding armor-piercing unit. They're okay. They're on the lower tier of that list. That's gonna hurt Bretonnia for sure. Okay, Green Knight, +4 melee attack, +2 melee defense. Okay, Battle Pilgrims, +1 melee defense. This is a big deal. Battle Pilgrims getting an extra melee defense because they're pretty weak. And the Holy Wardens of La Maison Tal, +1 melee defense. Okay, so definitely, I don't know. This is I would say this is almost neutral for Bretonnia. Like making trebuchets, which they don't generally bring cheaper, maybe that helps. But making the Fey Enchantress worse, that's a big debuff, because that's their main lord. And making Foot Squires worse, that's a big debuff, because that's their only real armor-piercing infantry. I don't know. Bretonnia might have got worse here. Battle Pilgrim +1 melee defense. I mean, and I don't know. I think Bretonnia has gotten worse. That's actually bad for Bretonnia, because they were not a top tier faction. All right, Lizardmen. We know there's been some changes to the Lizardmen. The Cold-Blooded now stops rampage and gives +16 leadership, so it no longer has max charges. It used to be a heal, so that's the big deal. Cold-Blooded has changed a lot. Cold One Riders. So they added Primal Instincts, so they rampage now, I guess. +50 multiplayer cost, -10 charge bonus, +10 melee attack, and +2 melee defense, +4 armor-piercing melee damage, and +2 base melee damage. Holy! That's a lot of stats, folks. Wow. Yeah, and Cold One Riders are, we're going to see them as the Dawi if we see, I think the Dawi are still going to have an advantage against against the Lizardmen. I'm already looking down at the Saurus Warriors. Okay, one at a time, Sioux Devil. That's a big buff to Cold One Riders. Huge. Cold One Spear Riders, added Primal Instincts, -10 charge bonus, +10 melee attack, +6 AP melee damage. Holy crap, +2 base. This is... wow, that is going to change the faction somewhat. Cold One Riders and Spear Riders are way better. Horn Ones, -12 charge bonus, +6 melee attack, +2 melee defense, +6 AP melee, and +2 base. Huge buff. Feral Cold Ones. This is interesting. Feral Cold Ones are really good if you don't get right on them. You can beat the crap out of them pretty easy, but -12 charge bonus, +5 melee attack, +2 melee defense. 7 stats, +4 AP. They are an armor-piercing unit already. +2 base. We're gonna have to test these Feral Cold Ones. Let's see, because they're like one of those units. If you focus them down, they're instantly rampaging and then dead soon. So Croxagore, +5 AP melee damage, +1. Yeah, this is not going to do it. Croxagores, this is not what they needed. +5 AP melee damage and +1 base melee damage. Croxagores need melee defense, and they need missile defense. That's what Croxagores need. You give them, that's what I think. If you leave Croxagores alone, they will absolutely demolish your infantry line. I get it. They can be very good. But in sustained combat, they are so bad. Their stats are really poor. So what they need to make them better, and they're huge, they are really big. So it's easy to hit them with any kind of missile infantry. I tried them. I played against them, and I tried to use them in that tournament, last year, where I did play the Lizardmen. I had a game with them, and they were just terrible against Chaos. What Croxagores need is they are so vulnerable to missile damage, and they are really vulnerable to sustained combat. So give them better melee defense and give them better missile block chance. Like, just make, like, because they're crocodiles and they have this really thick skin. You could reasonably say, you know, they have an extra 25. Like, you give them an extra 25% missile block chance and an extra, I don't know, like 8 melee defense, and they become a useful unit. That's what I think. Having played against them a lot, they're very easy for the dwarfs to counter. Maybe it's just the dwarfs, I don't know. Skink skirmishers, +1 base missile damage. Oh, that's a crock right there. Sour Scar Veteran, on a cold one, -100 multiplayer cost. Okay. Ancient Stegodon. Ooh, +3 bonus versus infantry and -50 cost. That's a big buff there. Stegodon, +3 bonus infantry, -50 cost. Feral Stegodon, +3 bonus versus infantry, -50 cost. Oh my god, boys and girls. We're going to see some Stegodons. Carnosaurs, +3 melee attack. Okay. Skink Chief on a Stegodon and an Ancient Stegodon, -100 multiplayer cost. Okay. So the Skink Chief on these Stegodons is a lot more viable because the Stegodons are better and the multiplayer cost is less. So you might not see Skink Chiefs. I don't know. Those Skink Chiefs on the Pterodons are just so good. You're probably going to see them up there still. The Skink Priests, both of them on the Stegodon and Ancient Stegodon, -100 multiplayer cost. So really, I liked what they're doing here. So what they're saying is we want the Lizardmen to be using these Stegodons more, to be using their big, scary, crazy dinosaurs more, which is good. And Lizardmen are, I think, a very weak faction right now, along with the Skaven. Bastillodons with the Rev Crystal, -25 multiplayer cost. Okay, that's a pretty good unit already, so giving that a cheaper cost is good. Lord Mazdamundi on Zlak now uses an Ancient Stegodon weapon strength. Okay. Lord Mazamundi on the Palaquin, 516 health. Okay, that's really going to help them because they're pretty vulnerable, those big toads. Slan Mage Priest, +2 melee defense and +516 health. Yeah, exactly. And here we go. So Sour Spears, +2 melee defense. That's good. Sour Spears with shields, +2 melee defense. So Sour Spearmen, did some testing on them, not in the normal testing, is when I was planning to play with them against Chaos, and they are very poor. So that +2 melee defense is definitely needed. So Sour's Warriors, +1 melee attack. Sour's Warriors with shields, +1 melee attack. See, this is where, like, it never ever makes financial sense to bring a Saurus Warrior, because your Saurus Warriors with shields are only 50 more and they have 6 more stat points. Like, why would you ever bring a Saurus Warrior unless you just had enough money to bring, you know, we had 50 gold differential. Literally, Saurus Warriors with shields get the shields and they get better stats. So there's just never ever a reason to bring Saurus Warriors. Like, what they need to do is maybe they give Saurus Warriors better armor piercing. You know, maybe give them +10 armor piercing. Now maybe +4 armor piercing, +6 armor piercing, and trade that for +6 regular damage and +1 melee attack. And now you have a reason to bring Saurus Warriors. But yeah, these Saurus Warriors are just in a funny spot, and they'll never be picked by anyone who's really clearly understanding what the stats mean. And Temple Guard, +2 health per entity. That's good. So these changes for the Saurus are really good. So this will make the Lizardmen a lot better. Okay. That's going to make the Lizardmen a lot better. Having the Spearmen with just better stats, the Saurus Warriors with better stats, and Temple Guard with +2 health. Temple Guard are already very good. Like, that'll make them outstanding. So this might be enough to get them through until when they get their Regiment of Renown. And making the Stegodons a little better, the Horned ones, the Colon. This is a pretty big buff for the Lizardmen, and they needed it. There is no bad feelings for me on this. The Lizardmen needed this buff, big time. They were in a very poor spot, and do we see any nerfs at all? As I look over this, I don't see any nerfs in this entire list. And here's, like, having all of their Sourus and their Temple Guard get buffed, I mean, that is their infantry. I know they got Skinks, but Skinks are to hold down backline units. They're to take a few shots. They're kind of like chaff. But yeah, that's a pretty big deal. Yep. And having the cold ones, horned ones, and feral cold ones. Yeah, this is interesting. Well, I'll be interested to see how the lizardmen do. Like, lizardmen just are always going to struggle against the Dowie, because the Dowie have the tools to deal with the lizardmen, and the lizardmen do not have the tools to deal with the Dowie. But I think this is going to help the lizardmen in a lot of matchups. Like, those stat points are not nothing. Like, Shower's Warriors are good already. +1 melee attack, they're awesome. They have like 52 weapon strength or something crazy like that. The Sour Spearmen are a very weak unit, so giving them extra melee defense is good. That'll make them stand up a little bit better. They might need a little bit more. And to split the Sour Spearmen and the Spearmen with the shields, and the same with the Sour Warriors, I wish they would do that. That would help them even more. But they did not. So let's look at the vampire counts. Very small list, although we know the vampire counts got a lot of love in other places. So Strigoi Ghoul King on foot, -100 multiplayer cost. Helman Gorse on the corpse cart, +400 health. I don't know if that's going to help him with 23 speed. Never going to see him against the Dowie, I don't think. Vampire Lord Nightmare, +10 armor. The Devils of Schwarzhofen, +2 melee attack. Interesting. Those Flyers and the Vargeist, +2 melee attack. Trying to make them a little more viable. Terrorgeist, -2 charge bonus. Okay, very small. Karen Wraiths and Cryptors. So, Karen Wraiths, +2 melee attack. Now, Karen Wraiths you may see as the Dowie, because they are armor piercing, remember. And in the old sort of vampire accounts Death Star build, you would have Cryptors, basic infantry, and Karen Wraiths could be in there for some armor piercing as well. Interesting, I don't know if they made any other changes to them. It doesn't look like it, because I kind of thought, well, maybe are they going to change ethereal units in general in this patch? And it looks like the answer is no. So Karen Wraiths have more melee attack, and there's nothing said about their ethereal cavalry. Hex Wraiths are they called, maybe? And Cryptors, +1 melee defense. That's, I mean, Cryptors, I don't know. I think they suffer from the same thing that Kroxigor suffer from. They're easy targets. Mortis Engine, direct damage aura deals 20% less damage. Whew. That's a pretty big debuff, because the Vampire accounts, a lot of their builds have Mortis Engines. Maybe they're trying to get away from that. I wished, we talked about making zombies cheaper for the Vampire accounts. It looks like they just left them at 150. I'd really love to see them at, like 100 gold, 75 gold, something like that. But I guess we're not going to see it. So not much in terms of changes to the Vampire accounts. Interesting, even though they were the focus, were all they were the faction with all the focus in campaign. Interesting. Okay, the Warriors of Chaos. Pretty small list there. So Kolek increased projectile intersection radius to 0.95. I don't know what that means, but let's just think about this. So the projectile intersection radius. So where the projectile is going to hit them, the radius is increased. So it's going to be easier to hit them. That's what it has to mean. And gave him -5 armor and +100 multiplayer cost. So less likely to see Kolek against the Dowie because he's easier to hit, he has less armor, and he's more expensive. More likely, even more likely to see Sethurl, the big bird or whatever. Archaon, I saw some fights with Archaon. He looks crushing. +100 cost, +145 AP, -205 base melee damage. So he is a killer. I saw some of his buffs and a few YouTubers doing some testing with Archaon, and he is a killer, which is good, right? He's Archaon the Everchosen. Even if he doesn't get picked in multiplayer, he should be awesome. So Sigvald, +20 missile block chance, +10 armor, +5 leadership. That's interesting, because Sigvald's very cheap, and he has regeneration. So you might see the Warriors of Chaos with that extra missile block, extra armor, and extra leadership. Maybe that makes him a little bit more interesting. Dragon Ogres, minus 50 cost. The Feral Manticore, minus 100 cost. We've seen that. The Chaos Giant, 35 AP, 15 base, and plus 1 splash attack, the same as the other giants. Swords of Chaos, plus 2 AP melee damage, minus 2 base melee. That's a buff. Chaos Knights, plus 2 AP melee. That's a big buff. So that's just a straight up buff to Chaos Knights. Alright. So, really, a pretty big nerf to Kolek, but Kolek is awesome. Let's be reasonable. Kolek is fantastic. And Archaon is a killer now. Sigvald is cheap, and he's a little more durable, and he has a little better leadership. So, we'll see. Chaos is already a good faction. I don't know why they needed 2 AP to their knights, but, you know, I guess. You know, their infantry is amazing, right? So, Wood Elves. Wildwood Rangers, minus 50 multiplayer. War Dancers, Regiment of Renown, minus 50 cost. So 2 buffs. Wardens of Sithril, plus 50 melee cost, our multiplayer cost. It's a nerf. Waywatchers, Regiment of Renown, minus 50 cost and minus 1 ammo. What? Waywatchers are awesome. Maybe the Regiment of Renown isn't so awesome. Waywatchers, minus 1 ammo. Okay, well that's okay, I guess. Waywatchers are really, really good. Waystalkers, plus 17 melee attack, plus 3 melee defense, plus 15 AP missile damage, melee damage. So Waystalkers are definitely getting a giant melee buff. It's like 20 stat points in melee, that's huge. Treemen, Ancient Treemen, so Treemen plus 190 AP melee, minus 260 base, and Ancient Treemen plus 154 AP melee and minus 225 base. So that's a big buff to Treemen and Ancient Treemen. Sisters of the Thorn, plus 100 cost, minus 10 physical. Oh man, that's a huge nerf. Wow. So that's a big nerf to Sisters of the Thorn. I know that Janet on occasion really likes this unit, Sisters of the Thorn. So that's a big nerf. Plus 100 cost, minus 10% physical resistance. That's a big nerf. So big buff to the trees, buff to the Waystalker, nerf to the Waywatchers, which is good, and a buff to the Wildwood Rangers, buff to the War Dancers, and nerf to the Wardens of Sithril, and a big nerf to the Sisters of the Thorn. That's a huge nerf right there. So Waywatchers being brought down a peg, but making Treemen more viable. Okay, that's interesting. So Norska, we know that the Mammoths got a big buff. I'm going to try and figure this stuff out, because these are all mammoths. Mammoth. Okay, that's all mammoth stuff. So the Feral Mammoth, increased acceleration. Okay, so it gets going faster. Minus 1,000 mass. Minus 11 melee attack. Minus 30 AP melee damage. Plus 14 bonus versus infantry. Holy crap. That's a big bonus. Minus 11 melee attack, so plus 14 bonus versus infantry. So basically, plus 3 melee attack versus infantry. But they're going to be a little worse against knights and stuff like that. This is all bad for the Dowie. This is all horrible for the Dowie. Plus 30 base melee damage. Plus 4 collision attack max targets. Ouch. 2 collision attacks max targets cooldown. Reintroducing collision damage for mammoths. Oh my god. If you play Norska as the Dowie, guaranteed someone's going to bring a double mammoth build. And just, like, why would you do anything else? Just bring double mammoths and bring a lot of other chaff and, yeah, just run through the Dowie lines, because there's nothing, Dowie is going to have nothing that can stop the mammoths, with maybe the exception of, Ironbreakers will be able to slow them down a little bit. But, yeah. These mammoths are going to crush. The War Mammoth, increased acceleration, minus 1,500 mass, minus 12 melee attack, minus 2 melee defense. What? Minus 30 AP melee damage, plus 14 bonus versus infantry, plus 30 base melee damage, plus 4 collision attack max targets. 2 collision attack max targets cooldown. Holy crap. Yeah. This looks like this is pretty much, I'm just trying to read this, these all look very, very similar for the War Mammoth War Shrine, Soul Crusher, Wolfric on the War Mammoth. So they're getting a giant bonus versus infantry, and they hit 4 more units when they hit stuff, even though all their damage is less. So this is all bad for the Dowie. Because mammoths have a lot of armor. So this really means if we're facing Norska, really have to bring some Thunders or the great weapon version of the Rangers for sure. Maybe Giant Slayers, right? Maybe this just makes Giant Slayers way better, which it does, right? Because Giant Slayers will chew through mammoths. So if you can slow the mammoths down and get some Giant Slayers on them, they'll chew through them. So I guess this, in an odd way, makes Giant Slayers more valuable. Feral Manticore, minus 100 multiplayer cost. Famirs with great weapons, plus 50 multiplayer cost. That's great for the Dowie. Skin Wolves, minus 50 multiplayer cost. That's not great, because they regenerate, and they're actually really good against the Dowie. Marauder Berserkers, minus 1 melee defense. Good. Brutes of the Hound, minus 1 melee defense. Awesome. Marauder Champions, plus 2 melee defenses. Not awesome. So Marauder Champions with great weapons are something you do see as a Dowie. They're not a great unit, but plus 2 melee defense does make them a lot better. And the Norskin Giant has got the same treatment as the other Giants, plus 35 armor-piercing melee damage, plus 15 base melee damage, and plus 1 splash attack targets. Frostworm. Frost Breath is no longer a flaming damage. Okay, that's useful. Marauder Hunters with axes, increase projectile mass for more knockbacks. Ah, okay. So Skaven. Skaven is, so it looks like this is a big, like these buffs to War Mammoths will not be that big of a deal against factions with cavalry, which is to say every faction except for the Dowie and I suppose Skaven, but is going to be a big deal against and Vampire Coast, right? So Skaven, Vampire Coast, and the Dowie don't have cavalry. So, I guess this means that Vampire Coast can bring some units that can help stop Cav, and like the Dowie have answers. So it's not like the Dowie are defenseless against War Mammoths, but we're gonna see them. The thing is, the 1-2 punch that could be really devastating. When I look at this, is a double mammoth build with a couple of skin wolves and the Marauder Champions with great weapons. I think that could be really crushing. When they get some of their fast cav to go around back and just get into the back to help slow things down. Yeah, that could be difficult. So Skaven, what are they going to do? Good. Clanrat Spearmen, minus 25 cost. We know they're pretty crappy. Same with the Clanrat Spearmen with shields, minus 25 cost. Excellent. Clanrats, minus 25 cost, and Clanrats with shields, minus 25 cost. These are all excellent changes. These are needed. When we did our evaluation of all Skaven, of all infantry under 400 gold, Clanrats were in very poor shape. Now, Skaven Slaves, basic Skaven Slaves were very good for their cost, but Clanrats were very poor for their cost, which is really going to help the Skaven. Because you got to think, like a Clanrat's, just a basic Clanrat is going to go from 325 to 300. So, that might not sound like a massive amount, but it's a pretty big deal when you need, when it'll be that much cheaper to get, 4 of these. Death Globe Bombardiers, minus 50 multiplayer cost, plus 2 ammo. That's a big deal. Poison Wind Globadiers, minus 50 multiplayer cost, plus 2 ammo. Warp Fire Throwers, minus 50 multiplayer cost. That probably needs to be minus 100, because they're not that good. Hell Pit Abomination, plus 15 armor-piercing melee damage, plus 5 base melee damage. Summon Skaven Slave Spears now have Scurry Away and Strength in Numbers. So that's just a straight-up buff to Hell Pit Abominations. That's just fine. Warlord, Rat Ogre, Bonebreaker, plus 400 health. Okay. Straight up buff. Queek Headtaker, plus 19 bonus versus infantry. That's a little bit of a buff. That's crazy. If he has like 60, he has like really high melee attack already. But if let's say he has 60, let's say he has 60, I think he has like 70 melee attack, but let's say he has 60 melee attack. When he's fighting Dwarf Lords, he's going to have 79 melee attack without any of his, his head taker abilities or dwarf gougers or any of these abilities. Quick head taker is going to be a nightmare against the Dowie. That plus 19 bonus infantry equals nightmare against the Dowie. Maybe that just means, you really have to take your, you either have to take Thorgrim on his mount because he's large, or you do have, you really do take a Rune Lord on his mount for the magic resistance anyways. So maybe that's not such a big deal. Maybe you just have to worry about keeping your runesmiths away from Queek. That's a big bonus, plus 19 bonus versus infantry. That's going to make Queek very interesting. Storm Vermin Halberds, plus 2 melee attack. That's a pretty big buff. And they need it. Skaven, this is a buff to their lower level infantry, and this is a buff to a key infantry piece they have, the Storm Vermin with Halberds. Plus 2 melee attack is a big deal for them. So, all buffs again. No nerfs here. Again, I'll just go back and say, when everything's getting buffed, that means anything that's not on this list is getting nerfed. This is classic power creep, right? So our Longbeards are getting a big nerf right now, right? Because they're getting worse compared to everything else. Tomb King, Screaming Skull Catapult, minus 50 multiplayer cost. That's fair. That catapult's awful. Casket of Souls, increased projectile accuracy. Okay. It's awful. Ketep, Casket of Souls, increased accuracy. Okay. Cetra, Chariot of the Gods, plus 3 melee defense. Yeah. Okay. The Necro Sphinx, plus 200 health. Interesting. I thought the Necro Sphinx was already really good. The Sphinx of Usept, minus 200 health, so that's a nerf. The Sepulchral Stalkers, plus 1 melee attack. Projectiles deal plus 1 AP melee damage each. Okay. And same with the Eyes of the Desert, so that's a straight up buff. That's interesting. The Tomb Kings, I don't know. This is really not doing a whole lot to the Tomb Kings, is it? This is just very... So I'm taking Tomb Kings must sort of be in the middle of the unit. So they're not getting much of a change to anything, really. Like, big changes are when you see, like, core units get buffs or debuffs. Like the Foot Squires for Bretonnia. Them getting a debuff, costing 25 more gold is a big deal, because that's a core unit. The Sphinx of Usept, or the Necrosphinx, getting plus 200 health, that's pretty minor. That's one hit by anything else. The Screaming Skull Catapults, well, maybe you'll see a little bit more. Okay. So really not much for the Tomb Kings. In all, this is a buff for everybody. So again, this is classic power creep. This means that all of our good Dowie units are getting a little bit worse. Okay, so battle abilities and balancing. So that's all of the factions. So we're going to look at battle abilities and balancing here. So battle abilities balancing. So Dreaded 13 spell, summon Storm Vermin, now have Scurry Away and Strength in Number. Alright. Soul Rain, increased explosion damage by 50%. Soul Storm and Soul Torrent, all the same thing. Venom Staff, increased AP explosion damage by 18. That's the explosion there. Skarsnik's Prodder, which is the same as Venom Staff apparently. Increased explosion damage by 18. Comet of Cassandora, plus 6 AP explosion damage. Wow. That's a big buff. Comet of Cassandora upgraded, plus 12 AP explosion. Flamestorm, the Flame Storm now drags entities towards it rather than pushing them away. Interesting. That should make it a lot more powerful. Vembraces of the Sun now applies minus 22% flame weaknesses. Okay. Shield of the Old Ones. Replaced 44% magic resistance with 22% ward save. Holy crap. That is a massive buff. Mazdamundi, get ready to see Mazdamundi in every game. He's got some other buffs, But with this Shield of the Old Ones being a 22% ward save, straight up, and it also has +8 leadership, I think, with the Shield of the Old Ones. Holy. That's a big deal right there, Shield of the Old Ones. Mazdamundi is going to be in a lot of games. I think Basic Slan have it too. I'm not 100% sure, but that's a huge buff. A massive, because 22% ward save is resistance against everything. It is like 22% magic damage resistance, 22% physical resistance, 22% fire resistance, everything. It is a straight up 22% reduction of all sources of damage. Pearl of Infinite Bleakness adds 8 leadership. Okay, Dark Mail changed to a passive self buff active in melee that adds 24 armor and 22% magic resistance. Okay, Lance Formation gives you -12 charge speed, -10% acceleration, and -10% deceleration. Okay, that's good, because Lance Formation had no negative abilities before, which was pretty ridiculous. So now it has -12% charge speed, -10% acceleration. Hunter of Champions, -1 melee defense. Alright, Regrowth. Remove the physical resistance and replace it with 100% vigor. And it's been recosted. So I think it had a 22% physical resistance plus it healed. So maybe it now 22% now it gives you the heal plus 100% vigor. 100% vigor is massive because you get 9% with the vigor aura from the Grumbling Guard. And some spells give you 8%, 18%. And when the Grumbling Guard gave you 18%, you could constantly keep units at active. And when it first started, it was like plus 30%, and you could easily keep units active. Plus 100% is pretty massive. It must be a very, very short amount of time. Shield of Thorn replaced missile resistance with 22% physical resistance and reduced the duration to 22 seconds. Okay. Shield of Thorn upgraded, replaced missile resistance with 22% physical resistance. That's a pretty big improvement. Ballistics calibration reduced from 57 seconds to 32. That's ridiculous. So they're taking the best ability from a unit that's hardly used and they're nerfing it by 40%. Because that is your Master Engineer's main ability, Ballistics Calibration. It gives you accuracy plus 30 accuracy and plus 20 reload skill or something like that. It doesn't say they changed the cost, and I don't think they did change the cost, because when I looked at the cost of the unit card of the Master Engineer, it looked the same. So that's just a straight up nerf to the Master Engineer, like he needs one. Alright. I'm not bitter. Alright, Curse of the Bad Moon, contact effect now reduces melee defense rather than melee attack. Okay, well that makes sense. It makes it easier for goblins to kill stuff. Gorkle Fix-It changed from -24% movement speed to -48% movement speed, and it no longer affects vigor. And increased duration to 24 seconds? What? So basically, Gorkle Fix-It is now a better, cheaper version of Rune of Wrath and Rune, although it doesn't damage the units. You're gonna see Gorkle Fix-It in every single greenskin build from now on. That's it. You know, -24% movement is valuable. -48% is awesome. So I guess there is a spell you're going to see in every single competitive build, I would think. Because what you do when you put a unit speed to -48% for 24 seconds means there's nothing that can't be caught. Because with the Dao-E, when you put something to -48% movement speed, all that means is some of your units can catch some of their units. You know, that means your units that are at 30 speed or 26 speed might be able to catch a unit that starts at 50 speed. and they get a 48% debuff. Or a unit that's 70 speed might be able to get caught by a Slayer at 40 speed. Like, this ability for the Greenskins is going to be crushing, because the Greenskins have lots of units that are really fast that can catch stuff. So what it'll mean is if they're going to be slowed down to 48 movement speed for 24 seconds, like let's say some unit of cavalry for Bretonia or something, Gork will fix it's cast on them and they can't get away, and that'll allow any unit for the Greenskins cavalry to catch up to them real fast. And Greenskins have some cav that is like 95 speed, so that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting. I think that is a huge buff to that spell. Gork will fix it, because you would see it already, because it has minus 24% speed. All right, Wah, reduced melee attack increase from 26 to 20. That's a huge nerf, but it was needed, because Wah had a massive buff where instead of having like a 40-meter radius, it had like map wide, and now it's kind of overpowered. And we're even seeing that in our AI, in our AI tournament, because we're still using the old version of Wah, where it's crushing. But reducing it from 26 to 20, I mean, that's like, it's fundamental. It's like over 20% reduction in the effectiveness of Wah. That'll probably bring it closer to in line with where it should be. Scarecrow Banner, increased morale penalty for flying units from -4 to 8. -8. Will I use the Scarecrow Banner ever? Maybe I will, I don't know. You don't see it in campaign very often. The Light of Battle added 40-meter effect radius, reduced duration to 22 seconds, plus 1 power COS. I don't know what that means. Cost. Just never had the T. Light of Battle upgraded, increased to 44 seconds, minus 1 power cost. So Glittering Robe, removed morale, increased armor bonus to plus 60, duration reduced to 44 seconds. Glittering Robe upgraded, removed morale, increased armor bonus to plus 60, duration reduced to 44 seconds, maybe? I don't know. These look the same. Rune of Hearth and Home, increased effect range to 45 meters. Okay. In the stat card that I saw when I was looking at the stat cards in the tournaments, it was 55 meters. So maybe they've nerfed that, because it was 40 meters before. So we'll see. It was 40 meters before. I think it's 55 is what I saw, so this may be a mistake. It's either a mistake or they've scaled it back to 45 from 55. Destroyer now adds only 15 ability recharge rate every 90 seconds. Cursed Blade, fixed the reapplication of direct damage. Okay. Heart of Avalon now activates when Tyrion goes below 20% health. Alright. Crown of Domination, increased effect radius to 55 meters. See, this is where this should be. I think our Rune of Hearth and Home is going to be 55 meters. That's what I saw on the stat card. That's either a mistake or it's been changed since. Transformation of Kadan. The Manticore unbinds 40% slower. Reduced casting by -2. Oh! That's going to make that transformation of Kadan a lot better. Manticore unbinding 40% slower is a pretty big deal. Not that Manticores are great, but they do cause fear and terror. Tomb Swarm. Reduced direct damage by 25%. Alright. Death Frenzy. Increased duration to 28 seconds. Death Frenzy upgraded. Increased duration to 28 seconds. I'm guessing. Skitterleap now has a 40-meter radius, duration reduced from 241 plus 5 power cost. Skitterleap upgraded now has a 40-meter radius, duration reduced to 82 plus 8 power cost. Alright. Night Shroud now has a 40-meter radius, duration reduced to 41 seconds plus 5 power cost. And the upgraded version has duration reduced to 82 and plus 8 power cost. Edbutt, -2 power cost. Okay. And Edbutt's not a really powerful spell. The upgraded is -2 power cost. I think that's... So, I'm going to say I think that's reasonable. At the same time, this Edbutt spell triggers the Bonewood Staff, which gives the Greenskins plus 11 melee attack for 15 seconds every time it's triggered. and that's Wurzag's staff. So I don't know. Headbutt's just a cheap way to get that to proc. Daith Sword, max 2 uses, increased casting range to 100 meters. Okay, so maybe it only had 1 use before. Sneaky Stabbin', reduced wind-up time to 1. Alright, it goes off faster. Gaze of Malice, changed to an incoming ability. Changed to an uncommon ability. Max 3 uses, good. Cost increases to 152, recharge time changed to 90. Okay, that's good. Dwarf's Incantation of Cursed Blades, -1 power cost, and the upgraded -1 power cost. Sakmet's Incantation of Skullstorm, -1 power cost. So it looks like the Tomb Kings are getting some buffs here. Gaze of Nagash, increased accuracy, changed to a higher ballistic trajectory. Okay, so it's going to go taller, so it won't run into terrain as easily. Shem's Burner's Gauge, same thing. Vindictive Glare. Okay, all of these magic missiles. Vindictive Glare, Gaze of Mork, Shem's Burning Gaze, Gaze of Nagash have a higher, they're all cheaper and they all go higher. They're not actually a bad spell, especially if you hit the right target. So that's interesting. And that is it. That is it for the notes. Wow, it's quite a big chunk. I will say, not much has changed for the dwarfs. Though Grombrindle, -100 cost. Grombrindle's extremely good. Like, he's really solid, especially with that Flash Bomb. Thane +4 melee defense. I'll go take a look the second I get this game downloaded. I'm going to go and look for other changes that weren't listed here. I'm going to go and look at all the unit cards and actually try and find any other changes that weren't listed here. You know, obviously it's a net, I'd say net, you'd say it's a net buff to the Dowie, but really, if you look, the one unit you use a lot, the Rune Lord, is more expensive, and the Bugman's Rangers, which are awesome, have less health. Mind you, Hammers, I think that's a pretty good buff. 2 health for Hammers? Like, Hammers are already good. And Quarrelers with Great Weapons, to be determined. In the right matchup, I think Quarrelers with Great Weapons are actually better than I used to think. So we'll see how that lays out. In campaign, I'll see about playing a campaign shortly and seeing exactly how the vampire accounts do with all their upgrades and how the Vampire Coast does. And hopefully the Skaven are a lot better in campaign. I'd love that to be the case. But, you know, are the vampire, because the vampire counts, like Vlad and Manfred, they are already a rushy, really rushy faction. They get a few wins under their belt, and their ability to summon undead as they conquer, they can, in the early game, they can rush out and take a lot of territory really fast. They can be really, really scary early. So this might make them even more scary. I don't know. It looks like with the ability for Vlad and Manfred to have extra movement range, it kind of does make them a little more scary, but we'll see. Yeah, so not much for the Dowie. Really, it's a pretty minimal changes. I think the big changes here are definitely the biggest, the most love was to the Lizardmen. For sure. Like, just for sure. Yeah, look down here. And Norska is in. Well, Norska, I don't know about love. They're interesting. Because they had, their Berserkers got a big nerf. -1 melee defense is, like, it looks like it's very little, but it's not. Really, when we do the testing and we see the value changes, it really does make a difference. So, yeah, but I would say Lizardmen got a lot of love. And hopefully this sets them up for a very nice DLC with the Skaven, where they're going to get their regiments renowned and makes them a lot better. Yeah, it looks like they're wanting to shift them to be a more effective group, and they're making their core units, all of their core units, Temple Guard and Saurus Warriors, you know, they all got a buff. Mazda Mundi, he's got a buff on his Palanquin, plus 516 health, and the ability for that Shield of the Old Ones or whatever to be 22% ward save. He's going to be awfully good. Skink Chiefs on Steganons, -100 multiplayer cost. The Rev Crystal's cheaper. The horned ones, cold one riders, the spear riders are all way better. Like 12 stat points is massive. Plus melee, plus AP damage on top of all that business. They're getting more AP damage and plus 12 stat points. So this will make the Lizardmen a lot better. They're still not going to be... They're still going to struggle against the Dowie just because we're kind of like the hard counter for the Lizardmen, but they're going to do a lot better against other factions. Didn't think like I thought the Skaven would have got a little more. I don't know, like some of their core units, like the Spearmen, the Clan Rats are cheaper, and the Storm Vermin have better stats. So, you know, is that going to get them there? I doubt it, but you know, we'll see. The Skaven and Lizardmen really do need their Regiments of Renown DLC. And the thing is, the Skaven, like they're going to be getting DLC for the next 3 years. Like there are so many units they still have to get. And like the Skaven faction, when it's like 3 years from now, the Skaven faction is probably going to have double the units it has right now. Just because there's so many units to be had. I don't know how they're going to handle that, but you know, and they have really, really cool units too, like long range armor piercing guns, you know, that shoot warpstone. you know, they have some crazy units that are going to be coming. So maybe that's why they're reticent to really make them good. But like I would think you just want to make them good now, and when it's time for their big, you know, Regiments of Renown, you give them a nerf then, and make their Regiments of Renown, you know, kind of fit in. Maybe they'll be really good for a little while, but you know, it looks like the Lizardmen and the Skaven just are kind of at the bottom of the barrel right now, according to some of the stats. So, anyways, that's that for the changes for the Vampire Coast DLC patch, which is coming very shortly. And yeah, don't have anything else to go over. So I hope you found it interesting, and I will see you soon.